एकम अक्षरम हृदि निरंतरम भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम् हृदय कुहर मध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् अहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति। हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तत भावशुक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुतः कुतो वरधिया दृष्टात्मनिष्ठात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have commenced the meditation on Sri Dakshinamurthy Stotram, primarily relying on the translation by Bhagavan Shri Ramana Maharshi. We have seen the legend that leads up to the work Dakshinamurthy Stotram, how the Sanakadis, the Manasaputras, who were all already great tapasvis, they get the liberation through the avataram of Shiva, Dakshinamurti, and how Adi Shankara makes this into a stuti, makes this into a stotram, so that those who are not directly able to get the instruction of the Mauna can also attain the same mukti, same deliverance through the path of bhakti and jnana. Today we'll perhaps see the verse that Bhagavan has given as Mangala Shlokam, and we may begin the Dhyana Shlokam for the work that has been agreed upon by most of the subsequent commentators as one Dhyana Shlokam. Before that, before going into Bhagavan's Mangala Shlokam or taking up the Dhyana Shlokam agreed by all, let us see what Sri Dakshinamurthy Stotram by itself what it means. And Bhagavan has given us in the talks, in the letters, and in various places the clarifications as to what Dakshinamurti, the incarnation, the avataram, actually stands for. First of all, let us see what the stotram, why it has been written as a stotram by Shankaracharya, Adi Shankarar. Stu means to praise. So, any verse, any poem through which we praise the divine, a deity, we call it as stuti. Arunachala Stuti Panchakam, Kandashashti Kavasam, Lalita Sahasranamam, Vishnu Sahasranamam. All these are stutis, stotram. When the Vedas themselves do stuti, we have suktam, they say, Purusha Suktam, and the other. When the Vedas themselves praise the divine, the name is slightly different, but it is still the praise. What does stuti does to each one of us as sadhaka? For instance, right from very young days, I used to have the chanting of Kandashashti Kavasam and listening to bhakti songs on Murugar as the stuti that I had adopted. And I have seen that after my better half has started the journey in Bhagavan quite seriously from 2005 or 2006, she has been doing Parayanam of Arunachala Stuti Panchakam, Ramana Stuti Panchakam, then Upadesha Saram, then Ulladunarpadu. What does that stuti do to the sadhaka? It opens up the path of bhakti for us and also gradually puts us on to the path of jnana. It is not that bhakti is before and jnanam is later, or jnanam is before and bhakti is later. No such thing is argued. Both go hand in hand. Professor Swaminathan, in the centenary celebrations, there is a talk given by him in All India Radio, along with some songs sung by M.S. Subbulakshmi. And in that talk, he clarifies that in Bhagavan, the bhakti and jnana have no conflict, nothing against each other. In fact, they go hand in hand. Surrender and vichara go hand in hand. So the stuti is said to be based on two modes in which we think of the Supreme. As God, we think of the Supreme initially as one to whom everything belongs. The one to whom all this, idam sarvam. And in the next stage, or another way of looking at the Supreme, we see the one who is appearing as all this. Ashtamurti Brud Deva Pujanam, says Bhagavan in Upadeshasaram. What is the best mode of stuti, best mode of worship? Bhagavan says, all the 8 elements, the Panchabhutas, the sun, the moon, indicating the intellect and the mind, and consciousness, indicating the individual. These 8, 5 elements, sun indicating intellect, mind indicating, moon indicating the mind, and the consciousness or the individual. These 8 elements in various combinations makes up all the creation, all idam. So, to consider that all these combinations of these 8 murtams, 8 forms, 8 fundamental forms, are all only the form of God. That means one form of worship is to think that all these are belonging to Him. He is the owner. He is the single doer. He is the one who moves each of those one against the other, one along with the other. The other mode is to understand that it is God Himself who has taken these forms. In fact, interestingly, in the murti, in the sculptures that you will find, in the photographs or in the pictures that you will find of Sri Dakshinamurthy, you will find that his form contains all the 8 elements. The sun and the moon are there in the crown. Water is there. There is Akasha Tattva, there is Bhumi, there is fire. All that are present, and the Chinmudra indicating the Jnanam are all present in that Murtam. So Ashtamurti Brudeva Pujanam, when you are worshipping that one form of Dakshinamurti, you can see the Dakshinamurti form in all temples, most of the Shaivite temples, and in our library come the cultural hall in the ashram, you will find this Murti, Dakshinamurti, seated there as he is the Guru of all Gurus. All the knowledge that we get, whether secular or spiritual or about the Atman, all come from Sri Dakshinamurti. So, all the Ashtamurtis are present in Sri Dakshinamurti form. So, we praise all the forms as Dakshinamurti, or all the elements, all the forms are contained in that one form, Dakshinamurti. So, these two forms of worship, what they do? Like when I used to do Kandashishti Kavasam in the beginning, when I wanted to get the bank job as officer, I used to do 108 pradakshanas in the temple nearby. About half a kilometer away, we had LAMN temple. And in that temple, there was Murugar Sannidhi, which was quite big. And I used to pray that I will chant and I will go around the shrine 108 times. Once I have gone to Parani and done the pradakshina there on the top. And these are, we surrender to the omnipotence of God. That is when we understand that all these belong to Him, belong to God. Then the stuti, the praise, is for the omnipotence of God, from which we may ask something, like I did, or to which we may be merely expressing thanks for whatever we are having, which is the state we come to in later forms of bhakti. We merely chant as an offering of gratitude that practically the relative life that I have, every bit of it, it belongs to you. And such care you have taken in such a useless fellow, and as an expression of gratitude, this stuti is done, not for asking something. But then what about the other one? That it is the one God who has manifested as all the Ashtamurtis, and also the combination of the Ashtamurtis in various forms, including good, bad, all the people that are there, all the cross elements, the great ones, the small ones, all are only Dakshinamurti Swami. All are only Murugar. If you are doing the stuti as Murugar, in that, where do we come? We come to the knowledge that as in Upadesha Saram, Bhagavan would say the best form of worship is to worship all the 8 Murtams and their combinations as God. So in one of the Girivalams, we used to meditate on Upadesha Saram verses. We came to this verse that the best form of worship is to see all that you are seeing, all that you are hearing, all that you are touching, because these are the Panchabhutas within us. We sense the Panchabhutas outside us with the Panchabhutas inside us. And Bhagavan is saying all of them are only Arunachala. So while discussing from puja, we immediately came to Japam. That if the road is Arunachala, if that lamp post is Arunachala, if whatever you see is Arunachala, then where is the need to call them as lamp post, as road, as this or that? This is what F.H. Humphreys would have understood from Bhagwan's initial instructions when he publishes in the Mystic Gazette or something, from where the article has been carried to the book Self-Realization. You will find that one of the methods he says is you should stop calling things as things and you should start calling them as God. I understand how difficult it can be, but that is sadhana. Why should sadhana be easy? To the intellect, which has so clearly said this person is totally evil and that person is totally good, now no such freedom is given. It is all the manifestation of one. Now, it brings us to omniscience. Omniscience in the sense not of knowing what is going to happen tomorrow or what is time or what is place, but that what is going to happen tomorrow as well as what is time, what is place is all Arunachala. So, from the omnipotence of God, that Sarva Udaya, all these are His, are belonging to Him, and He is the only doer. No one is a doer in creation. So we surrender to the single doer through stuti, through praise, and definitely there is redressal. Definitely our mind becomes pure. The worries we have, the moment we come with a body, there is misery, misery, misery. If you just open your eyes, you see, if you are not in trouble, the next of you, the one that is adjacent to you on the road, is in some sort of trouble or difficulty or the other. Where Bhagavan says, it is said in the Vedanta, wherever there is a body, there is a misery. And even if you are temporarily comfortable, that is because vichara is not there. So once we come to this understanding, we come to omniscience, that is knowing God. The stuti is done only to understand that misery and the relative relief, which is only laya, both are He only. So the mind comes to ekagrita, comes to one mode, and is able to go to its source. So far as the mind is outward turned and involved with the idam in multiplicity, even with the request for something or even with the gratitude for having so many things, the ekagrita is not there. Then the ekagrita becomes possible when you understand the Upadeshasaram instruction that it is all He, it is all God only. So the Stuti's two forms now become clear to us, that the Stuti can be for redressal in the relative area, or to come to the omniscience of God, that knowing which you know everything, you are not confused by multiplicity in knowledge. Both these modes are possible in the stuti of Sri Dakshinamurthy Stotram. There are many stotras, all of them give both these. In Kandashashti Kavasam, when I would have chanted that, that stuti having come from the Adhikari, the one who has experienced the benefits of the stuti, he has made the stuti. And chanting that Kandashashti Kavasam, even after self-enquiry, when Kandashashti Kavasam is heard, there will be heightened spurana here. And we will know that that is the path in which we have come. And none of the bhakti margas are to be looked down. No, you don't think of them, that's all. Don't put them down in any way, because they are the very steps you have used to walk. They are the very steps in the ladder you have used to climb, in one sense. They are the very steps which have made you exist. So none of the bhakti marga paths which you yourself have benefited from are put down upon. In fact, in this, the Upanishadic Sara called as Dakshinamurthy Stotram, the entire benefits of bhakti margam have been brought by the Acharya. That both the some shortcomings in the idam that we pray, either as for ourselves or for our team, that also works. Coming to the oneness of thought, that also works. But more importantly, Sri Dakshinamurthy Stotram contains 3 lines in each verse dedicated to the Upadesham contained as the Sara of Upanishads. Vedanta Saram is contained in 3 lines. The Sreshta Bhakti is contained in the last line. So the understanding the 4 lines of each of the 10 verses, the last line is repeated in all the 10 verses, and that gives us the clarity regarding the bhakti. And the first 3 verses understanding brings us to the spurana of the buddhi, the spurana in the consciousness, which leads us to the nididhyasana and the abiding in the self. But that is about the stuti, stotram, Dakshinamurti Stotram. Now coming to the name itself, the Dakshinamurti, I have always wondered that how come in the Puranas we have names that are so indicative as what are the qualities of that person. No, somebody will be called as Duryodhan. Somebody will be called positively in some other way. Now, how that could have come about, this modern intellect, it doesn't keep quiet, isn't it? But then you understand that though the given names, like I have the given name as Nandakumar, but my grandmother has given me an internal name called Nataraja Subramaniam. That is called as Sharma Nama. That is called as something used for my meditation as to what is the inner self. Like that, they might have had some Vyavaharika Nama. But for our sake and our understanding, the great ones, the authors, have named as we could understand them easily. Here, we can take that both the given and the understanding Nama are the same. The Dakshinamurti is full of meaning. The word itself, the Nama itself, is full of meaning. That the Sanskrit split that they say is, in one way you can split it as Dakshina Murti, or Dakshinaha Amurtaha. Dakshinamurti or Dakshinaha Amurtaha. Now, having come through the path of directly taking the practical aspects, why are we going into these meditations from tradition? Because they are very helpful in directing our mind to what is intended in the verses. The very name itself is an object of meditation. The very name Dakshinamurti, the very name Sri Dakshinamurthy Stotram itself is meditatable. Okay, you are standing and thinking randomly about something, the mind is rambling. You suddenly remember Sri Dakshinamurthy Stotram, you chant it. Now, when you are chanting it, immediately the mind comes into the sadhana mode, comes into the tapas mode. And simultaneously, the jiva, in whatever level it is functioning, it is benefited by the grace of the Acharya and Sri Dakshinamurti himself. So, Dakshina Murti, Dakshina, the word there has two meanings. One is south and another is to the right side. Usually, the commentators, those who come from Vedanta, take the south alone. But in Bhagavan, we can even understand the importance of that word, that Dakshina, pointing to the right side of the chest. That if you see Bhagavan's sculptures, his eyes will be, or his face will be slightly tilted to the right, and indicating that this Puranam is felt bodily, at the bodily level, on the right side of the chest. But then let's come to the tradition, that in tradition, Dakshina means south. Murti, of course, is the form that is facing south. What is the indication of facing south? South is supposed to be the inauspicious direction because Satipati is Yama. Because we treasure relative life so much as against relative non-existence, we actually celebrate birthdays and really don't even want to think about the southern direction. Forget about facing it. If anybody brings up that topic, south direction, Yama, death, immediately the topic is diverted by someone or the other in other directions, and we also feel good about it now that that topic has been averted. Whereas here, Dakshinamurti is facing south, is facing Yama. In what sense? That he is the Mrityunjaya. And that is what Bhagavan says in Ulladinarpad, second verse. Mrityunjayam mrityubhyashritanam ahammatir mrityumupaiti purvam atasvabhavat amruteshu teshu katam mrityudhiyo avakashaha. That is, the Mrityunjaya is who? As a form, the Mrityunjaya mantra manifests as Dakshinamurti Swami. The non-existence of all idam, which the Sanakadis are already meditated on. The Sanakadis, if you recall, they were invited by Brahma to participate or to originate the creation. But then they inquired, where are you going? And he said, I am going for peace of mind, where these objects are not present. The objects of creation are not present. and they immediately decide to go for that upashanti. That means their mind has already done vicharana about the transient nature of the objects. That is why you will find in the first dhyana shlokam that they are all quite mature in their meditation. And what did they ask? By the very action that we are not interested in even bringing new ideas to this creation, they have understood the transient nature of the idam. So, only what is the nature of aham or atma? What is this atma vidya? That alone they want to know. Now, there are no answers in the idam they have understood. Now, to such ones, who can teach? Only who has crossed the end of idam. The scientists say that the whole solar system may last so many billion years, but then even then, so far as it is a form, they have to set a time frame that up to this time frame it can exist. And time itself, Bhagavan says in Ulladu Narpadu, time itself, since you can think of it, it has a subtle form, then it also has an end in self knowledge. It is also idam to the aham. You can ask, for whom is this time? For whom is this place? Then the aham, which is self attentive, transcends both time and place, even in sadhana. Even with sadhana, you stop thinking of time, you stop thinking of place if you directly hold the I. So, in Dakshinamurthy, the name, he is the one who is the Mrityunjaya, facing the possibility or the actuality of non-existence of the idam, of which we are all afraid. When am I going to die? Attaching ourselves to the form. We say, I was born on 10th November 1962. So, by average age of Indians, with all the ailments that come along and all the goodness that comes along, maybe 10, maybe 12 more years, something like that, we try to guesstimate. And the problem with averages. When I had gone for the bank interview in 85, 84, the interview was in 84. One of the questions I was asked was very simple. The questioner asked, if somebody says you appear to be 5 feet 8 inches or so in height, if somebody says that the river in front of you has 3 feet average depth, will you cross it? Now that you don't know swimming, will you cross it? And I replied that I won't cross it, because averages has that shortcoming. That average 3 feet could mean that the waters are 1.5 feet for long distance. Then there is a huge trench of 30-40 feet wide with a width of about 10 feet, in which I may not know swimming and I may go in. So this averages with which we live in the Vyavahara, we see the limitation of that on an average, these things works. The new medicine has a 10% possibility of avoiding stroke. So we do vicharana about the idam like that. And now, by Bhagavan's grace, we are interested in knowing where to place the aham. Now that the idam has been worked out along with Sanakadis, that there are no answers in the relative idam. What am I to do with the aham? Where does it belong? That he is going to teach as the skilled one in the amurta sthiti. That is the next meaning of Dakshinamurti. One meaning is Dakshinamurti, the one who is facing firmly and squarely and winning over the non-existence of idam, which we call as yama. And the other meaning is Dakshinaha Amurtaha. Dakshinaha is supposed to be expert in a field. Amurtaha. Now, who can actually win over death? only one who has a formless form, who is self-luminous, who is Spurati, Swayam Prakasham. He is not a Murti which can be seen. He is not the Mrityunjaya Japa which can be meditated on. He is not the Shlokam of Dakshinamurti which you can do Parayanam, but he is present as Amurtam, as the Spurana, the Maunam, with which Dakshinamurti actually brings the Sanakadis to silence. Who is Dakshinamurti? Dakshinaha is the expert in the art of Amurtaha, in the unmanifest self, in that which is Spurati, Swayam Prakasham, which is the Adhara for the waking dream and deep sleep, as well as it is the Purnavastu, it is beyond waking dream and deep sleep. That Maunam is not powerless. In fact, Bhagavan says, if speech, which is the grandson of Maunam or granddaughter of Maunam, if that has some power and we spend some time in using that, how much more the Maunam, which is the grandfather of all this. From Maunam, the I thought arises. From the I thought, the other thoughts arise. From along with the other thoughts, speech and words arise through the senses. So the speech which is in the sensory area is in one sense reduced to that level in power. Whereas the Maunam is the source of all the senses put together, all mental entities, all intellectual entities put together, all entities put together is the Swayam Prakasha Atma, the Atma Vidya Nipuna, the one who is the expert in the Atma Vidya. Jagadisha Sastri, who was Bhagavan's Sishya, and after Bhagavan's Mahanirvana, he goes to Peripariva. He is given a title as the expert in Atma Vidya because of his focus on self-enquiry and Atma Jnana. Peripariva gives him the title as the expert, as the Nipuna. I forget what exactly is the Sanskrit title he had given, but I have come across that name in Kameshwarji's translation of Jagadishwara Shastri's the commentary on Upadesha Saram called Tattva Bodhini. Kameshwarji has translated that entire Sanskrit commentary on Upadesha Saram. The commentary is by the Atma Vidya Nipuna called Jagadisha Shastri. Here, Dakshinamurti, the very name, it indicates Dakshinaha, the one who is expert, Nipunaha, in what? In the Amurta Sthiti, in the one that has not slipped into name and form, but is the power behind all names and forms. So that is the two interpretations or meanings we have. Dakshina Murti, the one who is facing Yama or south, and Dakshinaha, the expert, Amurtaha, in the nameless and formless Maunasthiti. What is this Sri standing for? Sri is standing for, in Bhakti Marga, we call it as Leela Shakti. In Jnana Marga or Vichara Marga, we call it as Maya Shakti. How can the same Shakti be called as Leela Shakti and Maya Shakti? That is how it is, that the Ishwaratva is given prominence in the surrender aspect in Bhakti Marga. So it is Leela Shakti, and Ishvara is supposed to have Maya Shakti in him and is using Maya Shakti to create the whole of the creation, maintain it, and also absorb the creation into his oneness. All these three, Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, are all through the Maya Shakti. Uladunil, Aladila, Adishaya Shakti, says Bhagavan. That the Maya Shakti is something which you cannot describe as to how it has come about, but it does not have existence independent of Dakshinamurti, independent of the self. That is about Sri Dakshinamurthy Stotram. About this itself is having enough content for us who have been practicing Atma Vicharam to be directed inward. The very name itself, Sri Dakshinamurthy Stotram, if you are reminded of, that is enough for you to be reminded of, oh, I have to start self-enquiry and do start the for whom is this. Because the Atma Vidya is the essential instruction behind Sri Dakshinamurthy Stotram. Sri Dakshinamurthy is going to teach us where to place our eye. What is the truth behind the eye? Therefore, it is called as Atma Vidya Stotram, which is a rarity because usually Stuti contains merely the description of the deities or the gunas of the deities or what you can ask as benefit from the deities. Now, all that is contained here, is contained. The Stuti, what all benefits you have in other stotrams, you have here. And at the same time, 3 of the 4 lines are on the Vedanta Sara. It is Upanishadic in nature. All the Vedantic truths completely packed up are put in these 3 lines of each verse, totally 10 verses. Let us go to the first Dhyana Shlokam or Mangala Shlokam of Bhagavan. This is in the usual lines that Bhagavan gives for Atma Bodha translation also, which we have seen. Only the context is made to Sri Dakshinamurthy Stotram. So, Arusir Asiriya Viruttam, the verse goes like this: Maunamam Murayar Katum A Brahma Vastu Valan Shivanilai Tavar Satchidar Seriguru Varan Sirkayan Uvagayor Uruvan Tan Ul Uvappavan Kalimuhattan Avanayat Tenbal Murti Appanai Yetuvome. Avanayam Tenpal Murti Appanai Yetuvome. We are going to find this is going to come in all the main verses also. So you can understand, we can understand that once and for all, that it is the surrender to the greatness of Sri Dakshinamurti which gives us everything, as well as just remembering Dakshinamurti is remembering everything, because it is only all the Ashtamurtis are present in his form. If you see the picture, all the eight fundamental Murtams are there in the picture there. So he only has become all this. That is the second meaning. And he is the expert in Mauna Upadesham, in the Amurta Sthiti. For him is our namaskarams, is our prostrations. Prostration means complete egolessness, that we don't have any doership, we don't have any beingship, we don't have any knowership. We surrender to Dakshinamurti that the jiva is incapable of doing anything by itself, that the jiva is incapable of knowing anything by itself. Other than that thought which is given by Ishvara, what can we know? Other than the existence given by Ishvara in the waking state, where do we have separate existence? In deep sleep, do we have the feeling I am Nandakumar? So the surrender there in the last line is of completely of all doership, completely of all knowership. That I say, I know somebody other than me is ignorance. What do I know about that person? What do I know about the Idam? So surrendering all that only by knowing you, O Shiva, O Dakshinamurti, everything is known. So surrendering knowership, surrendering beingship. Where have we gone in deep sleep? Did I exist as Nandakumar? You upload my data again in waking state. You are Nandakumar, you are this form, go and do. Then the doing, the knowing and being come because you upload the data in the waking state. You say that this is what you are. Then only the relative ego has any existence, any knowledge, any kind of doing possible. So our doing is not ours. Our knowing is not ours. Our being is not ours. What more freedom can be there? Complete surrender brings absolute freedom. When you have not done anything from beginning, everything has been done for you. When you know nothing other than Shiva, when you don't have an existence apart from Shiva in surrender, what is jnana other than this? So complete surrender is mentioned in the last line. And the other three lines in this Dhyana Shloka, Maunamam Urayal Katu. Here, the Uray, the speech given by Dakshinamurthy Swamigal and Bhagavan in the meditation hall in all those years, Kanakamal writes, he used to face south, just like Dakshinamurthy Swamigal. And though we come across Bhagavan's teachings in the form of talks, in the form of day by day, in the form of letters, those were all occupying very, 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 very small fraction of the day. The rest of the day was in Maunam. Bhagavan would simply pull and absorb everybody's ego. In that Sannidhi, nobody's ego could rise. And that very absorption of the ego in its source was the commentary. By his very commentary, he would give the sadhana of Uditta idatil odungi iruttal. How to subside in the place where you have arisen from, which is the 10th verse of Upadesha Saram. In the presence of Bhagavan, it would happen automatically. In the Dakshinamurti's presence, in fact, by knowing Bhagavan's life, we understand how Dakshinamurti would have given Maunam to the Sanakadis. That in Bhagavan's silence, many of the people who come, they write, I had so many questions in my mind, and I came, and all the questions vanished. In fact, N.R. Krishnamurti Iyer writes, forget about other questions. He used to be a Ramanama Upasaka to such an extent that Bhagavan had earlier told him, you should do Ramanamam like the Sudarshana Chakram going without break. Ajadaraya Srotasasana. And he would do that. And he writes, the moment he comes into the vicinity of Bhagavan, I don't remember whether it is in the compound of ashram or anywhere, but in the vicinity of Bhagavan, he cannot even do the Ramanama Dhyana. The pulling of the ego by the Guru's Sannidhi would be of such nature that the ego cannot even raise to do that sadhana. But that is the anubhava of being the place where the eye has to be kept. Atma Vidya. In Atma Vidya, you can't even hold God as the idam, the nama. So the Mauna Vyakya, the Maunamam Urayar, Katum, what is indicated? Brahma Vastu. That Brahma Vastu, that Brahma Nilai, where the egolessness is, you are directly pulled into the Brahman. By the Atma Shakti, Atma Bhala of the Guru. In that Maunam, all the egos, and Bhagavan recounts the similar incident with another Guru. Another Guru's Sishya writes a Bharani on him. Swarupananda and one other person. One is a Sishya and another is a Guru. The Sishya writes a Bharani. Bharani is supposed to be written only for those who conquer more than 1,000 elephants in a war. Those kind of warriors, great ones, are to be praised. Stuti has to be done. That won't be considered stuti here. Here stuti is only about the divine. Any praise of individuals or gods should not be considered stuti. Now that Bharani, he writes in favor of his Guru. And the poets in the court, they take objection. How can you write a Bharani on a human being who has gone and sat down there at the edge of the forest and done nothing that is known to us? Then he says, you all come. So the entire court goes to that place where the guru is there, and for 3 days, all their egos become completely absorbed in the source. They are not able to take a single thought. And then, having come out of the reverie, the guru moving his mind a little bit. Nan asayindal asayum agilam elame. When the guru's mind moves a little bit wantedly to release them for their sadhana, they all come out and say, what is capturing or killing 1,000 elephants? Our rutting egos have been silenced for 3 days. Definitely your guru is worth the Bharani you have written, says the courtiers. That is Mavanamam Murai, which Dakshinamurthy was having, and which becomes clear to us through the life of Bhagwan and through the practice of Atma Vicharam also. That when we directly practice Atma Vicharam, the difference in time and place, the difference in personalities, all vanish in the Atma. That's what we can do till 8 o'clock when we can listen to Akka. Ujjwalji, you can set the time for us. Am I on time or 7 minutes we have, I think. 7 minutes we can sit for Atma Vicharam. Yeah.
Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. With immense grace of the self, manifest as Ramana, we are meditating on that very self, the Dakshinamurti. And today, Nandakumarji very beautifully introduced us to the two meanings of the word Dakshinamurti. The first one being the one who faces the southern direction or the direction of death, who faces death. And recently in the Kannada Satsang, Ujjwal Jagdish was also meditating on this topic of how Bhagavan Ramana is Dakshinamurti, how he has not only faced death but conquered death, and then, of course, given us the path to conquer death. And Kumarji had quoted also the verse Mrityunjayam mrityubhiyashritanam aham matihi mrityumupaiti purvam ataha swabhavat amriteshu teshu. So the one way is to surrender, says Bhagavan. And the other, which Bhagavan showed to us, in a way he showed us both ways of looking at death. When we look at the traditional people who faced death, we have the instances of Markandeya, who surrendered to Lord Shiva and became immortal. And we have the instance of Nachiketas, who questioned Yama as to what is the meaning of death. Now we find Bhagavan as a boy of 16, he decided to face death because death had come. He is a Dakshinamurti. It's a very amazing thing that this incident of Bhagavan facing death and conquering it, it happened in Madurai, in his younger paternal uncle's house. And that house is on a street which is perpendicular to the southern gate, the Dakshina Dwara of Meenakshi Amman temple, and there is a Dakshinamurti image which adorns the top of that temple door, that gateway. There is a very beautiful Veena Dakshinamurti. That Dakshinamurti is carrying a veena, and there is one more very significant and fact for devotees of Bhagavan Ramana, that the Dakshinamurti fresco which adorns this southern gateway of the Meenakshi Amman temple has his head slightly bent to the right. So just like our Bhagavan, this Dakshinamurti in the Madurai temple facade and in the southern gateway, he has his head bent to his right. In that street, Bhagavan, as a boy of 16, he decided to face death, literally to be Dakshinamurti, to face the death, because he was afraid, he was captured by the fear of death, gripped by the fear of death, and he decided to face it. In a way, one may say he surrendered to death. He did not try to, the biographers say, he did not try to escape it in any way. He did not run to a doctor. He did not run to his friends or relatives. He says he decided to find out what death means, face it. But also one could say that he accepted it or surrendered to it. And he, of course, he became the Dakshina Amurtihi. By facing death, he became the expert on the deathless spirit. Again, Bhagavan faced death or accepted or surrendered to it when he was living in the Virupaksha cave. He and the devotees had gone to Tortoise Rock, and they had gone to the Pachayaman temple for a bath. On the way back, near the Tortoise Rock, after a few spells of fainting, Bhagavan was practically physically dead. The devotees gathered round him, in particular Vasudeva Shastri, held him and wept because the body had become blue. The breath had stopped, and Bhagavan very beautifully has given us a description of this. So, the facing of death, what happened? Even then, he did not resist it. The death had come, he was just watching. He was watching it, the physical death this time, and he says, slowly a white curtain covered everything. All these the scenes were wiped out. Everything was wiped out, and only that white curtain remained. The Amurta remained. Nothing was there. No Murti. Nothing was seen. And but the Hridaya Spurana was going on. So Bhagavan gives us, he is an expert on the facing of death, and he repeatedly through the facing of death, he gives us the secret of deathlessness. Again, Bhagavan conquered death through surrender to Arunachala, the death which came for a dear one, for his mother Aragamma. And there also, when he prays to Arunachala, as Nandakumar said, he talked about the beauty of prayer also. When he prays to Arunachala, even in that prayer, Bhagavan embeds the question, Arayir Kalanume Yar. What is death if scrutinized? So that was the facing of death. And finally, of course, we know of the last few, the very, very ravageous sarcoma, the way it literally ate up Bhagwan's body, and how he surrendered completely to that. We know about that as well. So, this is how Bhagavan has showed us, how he has shown and revealed the ultimate in facing death, in being Dakshinamurthy. And of course, he is Dakshina Amurti also. He is the Daksha, the one who is very, very knowledgeable in the science of silence, in the science of that which has no boundaries, no form, nothing to describe it as an attribute. Nandakumarji gave the instance of N.R. Krishnamurti Iyer, whose Ramanama Japa would stop when he came into Bhagwan's presence. We have the instance of Punjaji recording that he was doing Ramanama Japa, Krishna Japa, Ramanama, I think probably 24 bar 7. Even in the night, even he would not even sleep. The japa would go on. But then the japa came to a standstill at one point of time after he had come for Bhagwan's darshan. And questioned him as to the Amurta form of God. He said, you do see God. Every now and then you see. But that form comes and goes away. Should not gods be something which is ever present? Why do you want to hold on to a God who comes and goes? So he came back to Bhagavan and he was blessed with the experience of the self. And we have the instance of Kanakamma also narrating. She has said that then when she was staying there in Tiruvannamalai, she had to face a lot of physical hardships, she says, in those days. There would not even be enough of water in the well to have a bath. That about 1 inch or 2 inches of water on top would be clear. So if somebody has already taken a bath, then you will be left with muddy water. So you have to be quick, and then also there will be snakes and other insects, poisonous creatures around the place. She says, if I hang out my towel or my garments on the clothesline, the morning when I have to take that garment, there will be a snake just on top of that rope. So I have to, with a stick, I have to just uh, touch it a little bit or touch the clothesline, and then it will fall. Like the thud, it will fall on the ground. So it's very frightening. And she says, every morning, with facing all these difficulties, I would make up my mind it's not possible to continue to stay in Tiruvannamalai with all these situations and these difficult circumstances. Today, I will tell Bhagavan that I am leaving. I am leaving. And she says, the moment one enters the portal, it's the same way as Krishnamurti says, the moment one even enters the portals of Ramanashramam, she said she would start melting. There would not be, who would be there in Bhagwan's presence to report to him or tell him, I am not going to come tomorrow, I am going away from Tiruvannamalai. So only when I get back to my room, all these thoughts will come. And then again, next morning, if I go the same situation, there is no way I could tell Bhagavan that I am leaving or I have any difficulty whatsoever. In fact, Bhagavan, it is said, even held monkeys in that silence only when he was in Pachayaman temple or in Virupaksha cave. And it said that even when a single mind moved of the monkeys, if any one monkey got restless, he would say, enna rajyam kolla poradhu? What kingdom are you losing that your mind has to move? What is the need for the mind to move? Such is the glory of Bhagavan's revelation of the Amurta Sthiti. Such is the Daksha, he is in the Amurta Sthiti, and out of that compassion, that natural compassion of one who is ever abiding in the self, which allows them to share, not from any motive to change anything or anyone, because in that state, where do they have any such differentiation? But the compassion is something which, according to the Ishvara Ajna, is so beautiful that all these great ones automatically share that state with us. And that is how we have been blessed with the Tamil translation by Bhagavan of the Dakshinamurthy Stotram, and which carries his own stamp, which has his own authority, and also the resurgence of that grace of Adi Shankara to anyone who is again meditating on this sutra. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana to all. Namo Ramana.